My name's Scott Tibbles with the Investing News Network, and today I'm having a chat with Remi Piet, Senior Director at America's Market Intelligence. Thank you for joining me, Remi.
It's a pleasure as always, Scott.
So today we're going to talk about elections in South America. There's been a few that have happened. There's a few that are on the way. Of course, it is October 21 today, and it is the day after the first round of the Bolivian presidential election. Evo Morales changed the constitution so that he could have a fourth attempt at, well, getting another term. He's already been in power for 13 years now. So, Remi, earlier this year, you told me that Bolivia appeared to be punching below its weight when it came to the resources industry and had been doing so for pretty much the entirety of Evo Morales' term. Can you tell me a little bit about, what's happened with the election and, well, what could change with this, what seems to be quite a big challenge for Evo Morales' leadership?
Well, I mean, the potential for investment in the mining industry, in the mining sector in Bolivia is very high. I mean, simply because of the quantities of reserves from zinc, lead, tin, gold, silver, copper. I mean, there's a very strong potential for investment in the country. But obviously, a series of financiers specifically have been, worried of potentially investing in Bolivia because of the Evo Morales administration, the position of the country on a series of issues, more obviously on the left wing of politics. But that's why I was mentioning that there was strong potential that was untapped today in Bolivia. However, what's very interesting is to see that before going into the details of the election last night, is that whether Carlos Mesa or Evo Morales win that election, both candidates are actually very much in favor of encouraging more investment, more exploration in the mining sector in the country. And so I would strongly encourage potential investors, potential companies to look closer at Bolivia for a country where they might want to be looking at potential projects, and we're happy to support them on this venture. When you're looking at Evo Morales has been supporting a system of mining cooperative in Bolivia, very strong supporter of, let's say, mid-scale miners in the country. That doesn't mean that it's opposed to industrial mining. You actually have a series of interesting silver project with companies operating from Vancouver that have been operating in Bolivia for a certain amount of years. Pan American Silver being one. There's a silver corp also from out of China, which is very much present in the country, and they've been quite successful in their exploration and the start of their production campaign in the country. What we've seen with, more specifically with the elections last night, is for the first time, Evo Morales he is likely to face a second round on December 15, because he was not able to gather enough votes to win on the first round. We're looking at a result that would be likely to be 45% for Evo Morales, 37 or 38% for Carlos Mesa, and the rules in Bolivia is that you should have 10% margin to actually be elected in the first round if you're not reaching the 50% marker. And it's the first time for Evo Morales that he has to go to the second round. He has won, with a very large margin, above 60% in the previous three attempts at running for elections. And this is mainly the consequences of concerns in Bolivia that the country is turning towards more less and less democracy, and the fact that Evo Morales ran for a fourth term that initially was against the constitutional rules in the country. There was a referendum in trying to favor his capacity to run for this election, a referendum they lost, and he had to go through the constitutional court to be able to present his candidacy. So the concerns here are not so much in terms of economy; they're much more in terms of a rise of corruption in the country and the trend to turn towards more and more, let's say, single-handed autocracy or dictatorship from Evo Morales trying to keep his grip on power. When you're looking on the issues of economic development in Bolivia, Bolivia actually has recorded very interesting results on the economic front. They're having a 4% growth this year. They have an average of 5% over the last decade, which is way above the average of Latin American countries. There's a strong decrease in poverty and extreme poverty in the country. There are some development of small and medium companies in Bolivia, and a series of reforms, especially in the mining code that we actually covered in last interviews, but I could go further in detail in future interviews on the capacity to invest in the mining sector in the country. So that's why I mean we are actually quite bullish. Whatever the result of the elections will be in the second round in December 15, of encouraging companies to look at Bolivia as an area for projects because of the strong geological reserves and the capacity. Once you understand how to operate in Bolivia, how to work with the national government, obviously, but also specifically with cooperative and regional actors, there is a strong potential for successful projects in the country.
Okay, and so just touching on the results. So obviously we're very close to when the election was actually held. It's only Monday. It was held on Sunday. They're still counting. By the looks of it, Morales, his lead is, as you said, less than 10%. The most recent numbers I've seen are 45% to 38%, or around about there. So of course Bolivia will be heading to a runoff election, which I believe is projected for December 15. So, just so that we can get a little bit into commodities, can you just give me a little bit of a brief profile of what is mined in Bolivia? What is it known for? Because I know that it's of course an Andean country. It's neighbors with Chile and Peru, two countries which are very prolific mining jurisdictions.
Well, in terms of reserves, you have very much the same kind of reserve that you will find in the Atacama region of northern Chile or the south eastern part of Peru. There's strong potential in the Potosi department, specifically for silver, for lithium. Very, very interesting region for potential reserves there. New Pacific Metals has been very successful in exploration efforts in the country. Same thing as a Pan American Silver. So you do have some pioneers in the mining sector. Now, what is Bolivia known for in terms of its structure and political economy structure? It is a country which is led by the MAS, the Morales administration, that has been very keen on being cautious of how to liberalize the economy. It has been put, on the side of liberalization with a strong dispute with the U.S. and there's clearly no favorable positions and diplomatic relationship with the Trump administration today, as it was the case since the very early years of Morales under the Bush administration. Morales was studied his tenure in office by nationalizing the energy sector and therefore having him strengthening the grip of the national state over large size of the economy, especially in the extractive industry sector. However, this being said, as I was mentioning earlier, once you understand how to work with the Morales administration and with the entire, let's say, range of different actors in the mining sector, there are clear partnerships that can be stricken with, corporate mining cooperatives, with regional actors, because there's an interest from Bolivia to generate more and more foreign investment. Obviously, they are very well aware that the country is very much dependent, unfortunately, still on the extractive industry sector, with the incapacity to diversify the economy on other verticals, and therefore the capacity for Bolivia to attract foreign investment is very high. And we've been working in Bolivia for quite some time now, so we understand how to operate and navigate through the administrative channels and find the ways to work with the correct partners in Bolivia. And once you have this clear picture, the capacity in terms of exploration, in terms of mitigating potential risks, because I mean we should not understate the element of risk that there is here, both in terms of security, in terms of understanding the indigenous factor in Bolivia, in understanding how to navigate with a series of red tape, but also with, as I'm saying, the cooperative layer of informal slash let's say small scale or mid scale mining, then there is a place for industrial actors and there is a place for large scale mining in Bolivia that will actually receive quite an open ear from the authorities in La Paz, all the economic actors and financiers locally from Santa Cruz de la Sierra, for example, because this country is fascinating when you actually look at the composition of different let's say regional interests and indigenous or let's say more different actors. Whether you look at Santa Cruz de la Sierra, you got La Paz, Potosí, Cochabamba. All those different regions are very much unique.
Talking about navigating the red tape in Bolivia, is Bolivia a country that is known to be, well, a country that adheres to the rule of law, or is it a little bit of a sort of touch and go situation for miners operating there?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. First of all, keep in mind that Morales has been in power for more than a decade today, and once you have a situation where the same team has been in place, you often have issues of, let's say, increase of red tapes, a certain amount of redundancies, a certain amount of rent-seeking actors that you have to be very cautious about. Okay, the second level that you have to be also very much aware is obviously the position of Bolivia on international markets. Today, you will not find easy sources of financing from international banks that would finance any kind of large scale investment in Bolivia. Now that this has been actually clarified, you still have key investors that might be interested in being present in Bolivia. Um, the fact that you have a country understand its potential for mineral industries that has already some kind of a track record on somewhat successful exploration and development of operation with, as I was saying, Pacific metals, with Pan American silver, and understand also the importance of developing more and more the lithium industry and also silver, gold, and copper potential of the country, shows that there is a general interest from different actors in the past to support the development and the rise of large scale mining operation. Now, this once you actually engage into Bolivia, then it is very much what will make or break your investment is the capacity to interact with social actors, mid-scale miners, understand the different economic and political key players and key stakeholders around the mining site, and this is unique in Bolivia. As I was saying, the indigenous communities are very strong. The local landlords and the local key power brokers are very unique in their capacity to interfere into a project. So it is developing key relationship. It is building alliances at the local level together with national level, and that will be the case whether or not Evo Morales gets reelected or Carlos Mesa gets elected. You will then have obviously a change of regime in La Paz if Carlos Mesa wins, but you will still have to be very cautious of understanding the key power brokers at the local level. And once you build those alliances, then your project is able to tap some very interesting resources in different minerals.
And just wrapping up on Bolivia, where can you see this election going? Do you think that time is up for Evo Morales, or could he well pull through?
Well, we very much have to wait the final result, obviously. But if he's above 45 to 46%, he does have just a short margin to go to be able to get elected. However, this election will be, whether or not he wins, will be a clear signal of the fact that he has to think about the next step. There was clear discontentment in the streets of especially Santa Cruz de la Sierra, but also even in La Paz, which is a stronghold of Morales. There was some discontentment towards against this capacity of Morales to seek re-election despite having lost the referendum. So we will see some kind of a transition, even if Morales is elected within the mass, probably. And if he actually loses that election to Carlos Mesa, then it becomes a whole different ball game. But you have to keep in mind that then Carlos Mesa will have been elected with a very short majority of votes because he's trailing in the first round, and that there's still widespread, let's say, support to the economic reforms and economic result that Morales was able to achieve. Again, there's a misconception on Bolivia on failing to understand and see how much this country has evolved over the last decade or so, the building of new infrastructure, the building of new, let's say, small scale companies, and the capacity to work with a country that has made strong progress, both in terms of its business environment and also in terms of the existence of new small companies or capacity to generate strong consortium of companies around mining projects. So that's something that when you're looking at the future of Bolivia, you have a country that has made strong progress over the last decade, but you will also have some kind of a shaky and political situation. Whoever wins that elections and need to be very cautious and work hand in hand with regional and indigenous actors around the mining project.
Okay, and so as mentioned, the runoff election will be held on December 15th. And moving on to another election that is coming up really quick is the presidential election in Argentina. So they're going to be holding their election on October 27. The last time that we spoke about Argentina, it was looking like its incumbent president, Mauricio Macri, was unlikely to be re-elected. So his challenger, Alberto Fernandez, and Fernandez running mate Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner had a thumping majority over Macri in the primary that was held. So when we're now in the home stretch for this Argentinian presidential election, what's it looking like? How it's going to turn out? Remi, obviously polling tends to be a little bit quieter out of Argentina. We know that Argentina's a country of interest when it comes to lithium investments. So there's a lot of eyes on what's happening. What can you tell me? How's it gonna go?
Well, there's a certain certainty, obviously, towards this election that is going to be held next weekend. I mean, the polling has been historically bad in Argentina. I mean, polling institutes have miscalculated the last election with the victory of Macri. Today, again, there's a certain certainty towards whether or not the most recent polls are relevant or able to capture the evolution of the electorate. What we know is the following. First of all, there was a primary on August 11th, a primary, which is basically an elections among all candidates for the presidential elections. What's important in this primary is that everyone has a legal obligation to go and cast their vote. So that's very relevant to understand the trends in terms of who is likely to win the presidential election on August 11th. Therefore, Fernandez and his running mate Fernandez de Kirchner, which was president uh, before Macri and wife of the former president Kirchner, had a strong lead with 16% over Macri. Since this August 11th primary, you then had a series of campaigns and events that took place in Argentina. The presidential debate happened is traditionally very late in the process for in Argentina. So there's actually been a presidential debate last night. There was one the week before. So they're just before the actual elections. And in those debates, we've seen a series of evolution in the race, especially with the attempt from Macri to catch up with the speed and propose a series of new measures and calming measures. Specifically, he has officialized a decision that his potential future second administration would support the small and medium companies with a series of support to the exploitation capacities, a series of promises towards the young population that has been left on the side of formal economy, trying to help them formalize their operations. He's been trying to promote diffusion development of better internet network through optic fiber throughout the country. So a series of new promises for Macri. Whether this is going to be enough to help him catch up with the lead from the Peronist candidate is hard to grasp, and the 16% lead is really large. The question remains whether or not in that primary people turn towards Fernandez against Macri just to sanction Macri before then the official and real elections in on October 27th, or if it is actually a very clear message that Fernandez will actually come to power and have a return of the Peronist Kirchner Fernandez um, administrations in Buenos Aires. In that case, obviously, there's some concerns for the mining industry. First of all, we need to say that both Macri and Fernandez will be pro-mining president, but the way that the support to the mining industry will be implemented will be very much different from whether Macri is re-elected or if Fernandez arrives to power. If Macri is elected, we're seeing a continuing attempt at internationalizing Argentina, at securing support from international banks, at trying to foster international investment in the country. If it's Fernandez who's elected, then we will see again a more, let's say, potentially less transparent politics in Argentina, support to more local actors, definitely still a support to the extractive industries, and Fernandez is actually on record saying that he will do whatever he can to try to generate US currencies to maintain the economy of Argentina. And there's not 20,000 ways for Argentina to generate foreign income. It has to go through either the farming industry, but more likely the extractive sector. And so we will see probably positive policies, whoever is elected in Argentina. But the way to operate in the country will be much different. You will have to have much stronger due diligences and much stronger understanding of who are the key stakeholders if Fernandez is elected. If it's Macri, then you have a more transparent scene, obviously, in terms of foreign investment. But in both cases, anyway, you have to be very cautious of understanding the local realities. If you operate in Mendoza, in Chubut, in San Juan, in Santa Cruz, all those mining jurisdictions inside Argentina, the way to operate in those jurisdictions is very much different from one another because the actors that actually have a strong impact on how you can be successful in your mining investment differ from one region to the next.
Is Argentina a jurisdiction where the who becomes president, is it going to be a question of where the money to develop Argentina comes from? I believe in previous chats about elections around Latin America, we've talked about how in some cases the money can come from the West, and in other countries the money is more likely to come from China. Is that another case here?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, yes. I mean, when you're looking at the current turmoil that Argentina is facing, Macri um, has relied on the support from the IMF, and the IMF probably understated the issues of the Argentinian economy, and therefore that actually led to its inability to provide stability in the country. But Macri has clearly been a pro IMF president and geared towards the Western interests and Western alliances. Very anti-Maduro position also. Kirchner, or Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, who's now the VP candidate to the potential future president, Alberto Fernandez, has had a tradition of being much more on the left side of politics, very much leaned to the populistic, mercantilist tradition of the Peronist tradition, with whether get all the historic president from Peron to Kirchner to her in Argentina in the 20th century, and that administration has been more traditionally open to investment from China or investment from actors that will not be traditional Western powers, and definitely the position from Fernandez towards the IMF is that Fernandez will want to reestablish a much more Argentinian-centered economic policies, rejecting the reforms demanded by the IMF, probably reestablishing an exchange rate, a fixed exchange rate, control to exports, a series of much more, let's say, state-driven policies, and potential, and that's the big risk for Argentina, default on its international debt. While Macri has been a much more, let's say, traditional president, open to working with the IMF, with integration of the Washington Consensus type reforms of lowering the deficit, trying to liberalize the economy. So we have here a very important election because this will decide the future of Argentina and the way that the developmental policies of the country will either gear towards a traditional liberal IMF-led series of reforms with Macri, or a much more mercantilist bilateral agreements with other countries, modes of development with Fernandez and Kirchner Fernandez, if that's the new regime in place in Argentina.
And that election will be held on October 27, which is from today, next Sunday. It is October 21 today. And so, moving on to other elections that are happening around Latin America, just wrapping up, can you tell me about what else is on the horizon? I know that there are elections coming up in Colombia.
Well, there are a series of other elections. There's elections in Uruguay. There's also what's is very interesting to look at. There are elections, local elections in Colombia. There, here all mayors and all governors of different provinces or departments, as they call in Colombia, will be elected, and there's no capacity to seek a second term. So there will be all new faces in power at the local level and regional level in Colombia. The reason I think it's very interesting to stress on this is that when we're talking about elections in Latin America, there's a tendency from investors to focus almost exclusively at the national level. When it comes to looking at the capacity for investment in the extractive sector to be successful, it's sometimes much more important to understand the players locally, meaning that the capacity, obviously you have mining codes and you have a series of regulations that are decided at the national level, but the success for an investment, understanding the capacity to build a mine, the capacity to face potential social unrest, or to be able to operate freely your project is really much more based on the capacity to build alliances and understanding the political scene at the local and regional level. And that's why I think it's important for any well-shaped due diligence and counterparty risk assessment or country risk assessment strategy from investors is to really understand those local elections, of which that Colombian elections will be very important to understand, especially when we're looking at Antioquia with Andres or with Aníbal Gaviria being the potential future governor in the province of Antioquia. This will be as important for mining investors to understand that it will be looking at the national level election at the presidential level, looking at the key policies developed at the department level and at the city level is what will make a mining investment successful and a good return on investment.
Perfect. Well, then we will leave it there. Remi, thank you so much for giving such a in-depth review of the elections happening around Latin America. And that was Remi Piet, Senior Director at America's Market Intelligence. I'm Scott Tibbles with the Investing News Network. You can find us at investingnews.com and feel free to follow us at Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.